Hello everyone, welcome to Monday Night Roundup over on Bloodbowl Live. Here to bring you another week's worth of summaries and fixtures from the last week in the ADBBL. We're on week 8 now, so 7 fixtures to bring you in this week, and we're also going to go over some of the tournament action that happened at the weekend over in Wales that had 5 of the coaches from the ADBBL over there. We'll tell you what happened there as well. Once again, as always, I'm joined by my two sidekicks. Isn't the right word. They're not. That feels demeaning. But my fellow hosts, Tom from the Blackpink Bloodletters and Scott from the Gentleman's Collective. Gentlemen, good weeks all around.
Yeah, all good.
Good weekends. Good weekends. Thank you, Christopher. Good evening, Tom. Yeah, I'll be the Debbie McGee to your Paul Daniels, Chris. Don't you worry.
I'm just the guy in the box then.
We'll just cut you in half there, Tom.
Exactly.
We'll dive straight in then for our first game of the week. As you can see, completely prepared. The table is not showing the first game; it's showing the standings that we are on at the moment. But our first game this week was the Corn team, Guild Knights of Cerulean versus the Amazons. Amazons in this case were played by Scott because, as I mentioned, Chris sadly had to pull out earlier on. So a close game, this one. A very agile team in the Amazons, a very bashy team in the Gilded Knights of Cerulean in the Corn team. And having a little look at teams were pretty level, so inducement wise, not looking at a huge amount. Team mascot coming in for the Amazons. Team mascots, I am absolutely growing to love them generally as a inducement because I think as a 30k for a possible reroll on a 5 up, I know the odds don't sound great, but actually I think they're amazing. I think they're really worth it. Amazon's scoring sort of near the end of the first half, and Corn scoring about halfway through the second, and sort of punches and casualties and SPP all round. I mean, Tom, it looks like a pretty level game that maybe had the right result.
Yeah, absolutely. And I fully agree with the mascot because it's got, to me, it's got no negatrait. You know, you can try it out. If it doesn't work, you can still use your own re-rolls. So it's always worth a punt on that side of things. But it's also looking at this, it seems to be a running theme with some of our league games. There seems to be a lot of injuries happening. You know, managed to break through armor and causing quite badly hurt injuries in this one.
Yeah, both teams looking at it have more injuries. Well, the Amazons had as many casualties as the Knights had injuries. Clearly, something happened with the Amazons, whether it was crowd surfing or whether it was failed dodges. But two more injuries than casualties that happened in this one. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know that Phil is watching, so it'll be interesting to see whether he can tell us whether there was some failed dodging antics from the Amazons or whether there were some crowds having some fun. Scott, sort of agile team in the Amazons, but quite low on armor, so you imagine that some beefy punching from those sort of the outstrength of the Corn probably has the edge there.
I agree. Yeah, I think it was a good result for Phil. He's on there tonight as well. Coach Acredes, the other Scott, took over the Amazons, obviously, when Chris dropped out. So it's a really interesting match. As Tom said, a lot of casualties and a lot of injury, but unfortunately not enough deaths. So maybe something for the guys to think about there on their D16 rolls. But as you said, it's a good result. Very punchy. And then all of a sudden, against that agility, Bill goes 1-0 down, and then that could have easily turned. So if they come back and get a 1-all draw, good match. Set himself up nicely for the next match that we'll come on to shortly as well. Difficult thing, Amazon's new coach, Scotland's what's he got to lose? And everything really is there for Phil to lose. So I think a 1-all draw put him in good stead.
Yeah,
I agree with team mascots though. I do like a little team mascot myself. Yeah.
it sounds like surfing is what happened there for those additional ones. So a player placed somewhere and frenzy coming into play and sort of causing some problems there. Yeah, it's interesting when the team. We've had a few games. I almost got to the point this season where I assumed there would be inducements for every game, and when I look at them, I end up being more surprised when there aren't any than I am when there are now. So looking at this one, I think, oh, there's not a lot there, but yeah, these guys did two back-to-back games because they wanted to be able to get them in quickly. So they had this game, and then they had another one, which we'll come on to in a second. Before we go on to their second game, though, we will go to the next game of the week, which was the rematch of our championship clash, champion class clash, if I get my words out, between James and Rich, OTFC versus the Riotous Rams. First time these guys faced each other this season ended up being a 1-1 draw, which for me, two very, very strong coaches, but ogres being ogres, I wasn't expecting that. This result maybe, if I'm thinking it was probably more what I expected from that first game, but Tom, casualties surprisingly even in this one, with all those all the skills that Rich has got and all those squidgy nobblers. Yes, a surprising balance.
Yeah, it looks like James is going to be needing to hire a few more nobblers, a few dead there. So there's your dead ones for you there, Scott. Yeah, and a surprising amount of casualties on the Ram side as well, like you mentioned. And again, it's not just kind of a misnicked game. It's these badly hurt, -1 movements, couple of deads. You know, they really are getting some high dice rolls on these things.
Luckily, Nobbler's nice and cheap to replace. But yeah, I mean, I imagine I'm looking at turn 4 here, assuming tall play is sort of roughly right. We've got one that's clearly been killed by Bob the Chosen Blocker, and another one that has maybe dodged out and failed. But two deaths in one turn is a pretty nasty way for the game to go. Scott, does this result shock you at all?
No, honestly, we've talked about him for a number of weeks, and we've also mentioned him in Blood Bowl as well. But if you look at Rich, he's got the experience. We talked as well about James' season with the Ogres. He does want that stunty cup. So other Scott, everybody's other favourite Goblin player, if you're listening, obviously that stunty cup is really, really a big challenge in the league this year. So a lot to play for with James with his new side. But Rich, we talked about him. He's the quiet man. He's getting the results through. He's still got a lot of upskilled players as well when you look at that, and another 14 SP in terms of coming out of this as well. So it sets it up really nicely. Good to see a couple of deaths. Always nice to see someone. Well, I'm assuming he tried to, as you say, Chris, dodge out, and hopefully he did fail a double one and get himself onto the pitch. Oh, there you go. Ogres on course for the Stunty Cup is apparently the Flumps coach's opinion in chat as well.
Rich's
also playful.
Rich's team is looking quite terrifying, but it has looked quite terrifying for a couple of seasons now. We'll look at his team in a little bit more detail next in an upcoming game because we've got his other game later on. Inducement wise, Bomber comes in and a Wag Drummer as well. The Wag Drummer always scares me slightly, and actually, I don't know if I knew that Ogres could take a Wag Drummer, and now that I do know that, I think I might be playing Ogres at some point in the future because I love that inducement, and Ogres are so much fun. One thing I'd like to, interested what you both think. There are two Nobblers in that team of James's, who, but bearing in mind how cheap Nobblers are to replace, he's got two stat busted with armor 5. Because they are so cheap to replace, would you, like, James is obviously hanging on to them. I think I would probably do the same. Would you be ditching them because it's a cheap replacement, or would you think if they're breaking a 5, they're probably breaking a 6, I can buy some spares and I'm alright?
Yeah.
Personally, for me, James has got 90k in the treasury. Looking at his numbers, he's got the money. They cost nothing. A 5-up, a 6-up is always better than a 5-up in terms of an armor roll. It's always that extra 8% if you want to look at your statistics in terms of your dice roll, and that's better than nothing. So for me, I'd replace them. But maybe James has some Machiavellian plot or cunning that we don't know about. Or maybe he just can't be asked. Simple as that. Who knows the mind of a Blood Bowl coach?
He is, deep down he's a Skaven coach, so we know that there is some skeeving stuff, in that brain. So there's something going on there. Tom, would you ditch them?
Personally, yes. Just so, because again, he's only now got 11 players. So clearly we always assume that he's going to be at least 2 down by half time because they are so squishy. So just to give him that extra point on the dice, just to give him a little bit of kind of hope, I suppose, and maybe buy a few more extra spares and just then start to do a bit more risky stuff. Because again, his team value is pretty high actually. So he's not going to be like the Flumps or like some of the other stunties where they can just get a whole load of star players in to help them out.
It's
sorry, Chris. He's also got, when you think about that, what you said, Tom, he's also got my favourite named player in Blood Bowl, the Runt Punter. Now, so that tells you his consideration for the well-being of Noblars is pretty low, and I suspect he's going to be hoofing them around the pitch like a good one. Well, that's my personal hope anyway. So if he has,
we'll
more the merrier.
We'll have to keep an eye on number 11, Luongo, because 8 unspent SPP on that Noblar. I'm wondering how he'll go with that. That could be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Jane, I believe, in the chat is saying that she's thinking of ditching a perfectly healthy werewolf, and he's hanging on to 2 strength 5 Noblars. I'm pretty confident James is either at work or getting ready for work. But James, if I'd be interested to hear your thinking behind that. We will go to the next game, which is Amazons versus Khorne. The return fixture. All these 3 games were all happening at the same sort of time. So one finished, one started, one finished, blah blah blah. And this time Amazons coming out on top. A 2-0 victory for them. Even less casualties in this one. 1 casualty each, 1 injury each. More SPP from the Amazons, which it looks like has mainly come from the touchdowns, but there is a completion snuck in there as well. And it's Phil in the chat is saying that he was doing all the right things, but the dice rolls weren't backing them up. Scott, not a lot you can do if that's the case, really. If the dice aren't on your side, at the end of the day, you can do what you want, and it's just not going to happen.
I agree. If Nuffle's not smiling on you on that particular day, it's you can roll as much as you like. We talked about it pre go live with vampires, and we'll come on to that shortly. But if the dice aren't in your favour, it's a long 16 drives. Question if Phil's in the chat as well. What was it like to play Acredes there, Phil? Because obviously Scott came in. This is his 2nd match. Was it 3rd match with the Amazons? Seems to be settling into it. You've got a couple of casualties against you, and then he's obviously 2-0 up by, well, he's 1-0 up, sorry, turn 12 and turn 14, which if we know from the hot spews, it's a favourite tactic, get your touchdowns, in the second half. And then there's not a lot for the opposition to go, especially if Phil's rolling pretty awful dice as well.
Yeah, I mean, turn 12 and turn 14, so a 2nd touchdown there to kind of secure it. If I had to speculate, and what are us 3 here to do other than look at tour play and entirely speculate on what happens? It feels like Amazons can score quickly, but there's no pass involved in that particular movement to lead up to that 2nd touchdown. So it feels like maybe something has gone wrong in that gap, whether it's a pickup or a double skull or whatever it is from the Khorne team. It's odd, Tom. I'm interested to see what you think here. It's you've got a group here where you've got this Amazon team to play against, and Elliot is off and running away and dancing at the top of his hill. For Phil and Robert in this group, this game
Mm.
isn't. It's kind of you're against someone who's not going to go through. It's kind of almost a free fixture. You're keeping an eye on how the other person does in this game. From Phil's perspective, the Amazons have beaten the Goblins once, so actually losing once and taking a draw, you may have your eyes on kind of that one game against your opponent that you need to beat, and this maybe you can kind of let slide. What do you think?
Yeah, I suppose one of the kind of things I have with tour play is that you can't record knockouts, so that sometimes can skew the whole kind of view on the actual games. We don't know how many players are playing at any one time, because it could be the fact that there was such quite a quiet first half by the looks of things, but it could be that people got knocked out quite down to load. Equally, like you say, the Amazons have got nothing to lose, but they can also be a bit dangerous to the other teams that are trying to look to move forward and go through to the knockout stages, especially when you get things like an injury. And this one it got away quite lightly, but yeah, if you can start getting injuries and start hurting some of your souped up players, then that's going to cause problems.
Yeah, there are some linemen with block. There's a blodging lineman in there. There's block on a couple of sort of strong players in that team. So yeah, it's sort of my immediately go to is, oh, they're Amazons, they must be squishy, but that's just not really the case. Phil saying sort of getting lots of pushes, not getting the armor breaks when he needed them, and in the first game cut the Amazons down by 50%, but it doesn't sound like that went this way in the second.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting to see how this group goes then. We've got kind of two interesting fixes left. We've got Phil's last game is against the Goblins. If that's the Goblins' next game, that'll be an interesting one to see, because if the Goblins win, then they don't need anything from the Amazons. If they lose, then they need everything. So, Phil, let us know when that game against the Goblins is coming in, because I think that'll be a really interesting one to kind of watch how both teams play, because there'll be so much at stake in that one fixture. But currently, maybe Phil. It's odd. It's odd to be on 2 points in the group and feel like you're in a strong position, but I would not. I wouldn't be too worried, because I'd still be thinking if I can beat those goblins, I'm all right. So, we'll look at the tables a bit later, but we'll go to what was a very important game, the last game to be played in Bifford Group, which is Dwarfs versus Norse, Welsh's Berserkers versus Odin's Ravens. And Tom, JD getting a win that he needed, maybe not the extra touchdown or the extra casualties that he needed, but he's done all he can to try and claim a wildcard spot in this group.
Yeah, absolutely. And who doesn't like a dwarf losing a game? Because I know that all the dwarf teams in the league are tough competitors, and the coaches are equally well versed in how to play them as well. So I think this is hats off to JD. Fantastic result for him. I believe I think he mentioned in Discord that Carla did a lot of the heavy lifting, but well played.
Carla is. I absolutely love Carla as a star player. I think it's really like the strength, the pace, the skills that she's got are just so good. The dauntless the dauntless special ability where she can go to double the strength rather than equal once per game. So you could go up to any player on the pitch with one assist and get 3 dice. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. It does look like Kyler did most of the heavy lifting here. He got the first touchdown, got a casualty near the end of the game. Scott, if I were Jamie in this one, I'd have maybe had one eye on playoffs, knowing I'd qualified. So to have only one player, it is a skilled lineman that got badly hurt in this one, but only badly hurt, so they'll be fine for the next game. If this was damage limitation, I guess it's probably mission successful, isn't it?
It is, but I actually spoke to both coaches literally at the start of the match in the store. Jamie was on a 5-match unbeaten streak, 3 wins and 2 draws. So he was playing, some good stuff. It's his 3rd season of Blood Bowl. His first one looks like at the moment he is getting through to the playoffs. So well done there, Jamie. And I asked him, are you going to take it easy? And he said, absolutely not, which is what we love to hear. So I think that gives JD even more kudos to come away with a 2-0 and very close to a 3-0. In terms of what the Dwarves are going to do, they've got a lot of SPP, so they've got some things in the bank. And when I did speak to Jamie, he's got one eye heading, towards those knockout situations. So it was a really, really good win for JD. I think Jamie might give him a few things to think about, especially, when he knows who's his draw going to be as we go into the knockouts. But good match for JD.
I think looking at the kind of the way the injuries went as well, JD's gone away with 2 injuries in this one. Looks like a berserker is missed next game if that wild card does come about. So much mighty blow on that dwarf team. Not as much mighty blow on no mighty blow on JD's Norse. So JD's saying in the chat that he couldn't break armor on this one, but actually if I were him, Tom, I probably wouldn't feel too bad about that, considering how easily the dwarfs probably could. And actually, there's a lot of armor 10 in there as well. So, I wouldn't be too upset if I were him.
No, absolutely not. No, I definitely agree with that. But he sounds like he played an absolute blinder here. Taking the right players and against the right opposition. Got some fast people in there. Got some disruptors like Cindy Pie Whistle, although I think she got sent off at the end of the first half, obviously with a secret weapon, and didn't really do much by the looks of things. But little things like that can disrupt, the kind of planning from a dwarf team or slow them down.
Another team mascot taken in that one as well. JD saying he had a lot of knockouts at the end, so maybe with a few less knockouts could have pushed for that 3rd touchdown. But I think when you've got 2 runaway teams in this group, we've got wildcard places at the moment in the league because of the number of coaches we've got. I think all you can do is get yourself in that kind of place and cling onto it and keep an eye on the other games. So I would love to see JD get through as a wild card, and I'd love to give JD another game because I enjoy games against JD, mainly because I think I know JD will take this the right way. When you go into a game against someone who wants to see every single one of your players drop dead, you almost go, well, I'm going to lose a few, so let's just go for it, which could be quite fun. So, we'll see what happens in this group. All the games are played now, so that is the final positioning. We'll keep an eye on that 10-point number to see whether someone can top it. We're going back to Rich. So we're going to Rich Writers Rams in their game against the Double Yolks, the Lizardmen. This game was happening on Friday. I was in the car on the way to Wales and I was watching this, and 2 things came into my head. Thing number 1, poor Sam. Thing number 2, absolute textbook Rich performance in this one. I feel like Rich went into this game with a game plan and nailed it. If I had to guess, you look at tour play and you say, okay, Rich has gone in, he has killed or removed from the pitch over the course of the game every single skink that Sam has, which is the way to stop lizard teams. He has scored on turn 8, he has scored on turn 16, and he's taken a 2-0 win with 5 casualties and 20 SPP. Absolute textbook, Tom.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you mentioned there, this is something. If you wanted to watch how to play Blood Bowl, that is exactly it. He knew the weaknesses of the lizardmen, targeted them by the looks of things, and got those dice rolls, as we mentioned, and completely obliterated him. Unfortunately for Sam, yeah. And what can you do when you play against something like that, with someone like that?
Yeah, really tricky, and you've got one dead, one strength stat busted, so that's a strength 1 skink in that team. I think you probably do get rid of that. I think I certainly would. So the skills, Scott, we skipped on it earlier because I wanted to get to it here. The skills in this team, some of these players are just utterly terrifying. Nanny, in particular, the beast, who is just a beastman runner, tackle, block, and mighty blow +1, plus the horns that it comes with. I mean, it's just such an intimidating wall to face.
Well, I think it goes without saying, if you look at Nanny, I think he took at least 2 casualties there in that match. He's up to 23 SPP. To repeat what you just said, Rich came out. He took out the threat of the lizardmen in terms of their agility, and then I take full responsibility, Sam, for putting the mockers on you, because I did flag you as one possible person for promotion out of the league to the knockout stages. So take full responsibility for that for you, pal. But Rich, doing really well with some seriously skilled up players on that, and we didn't see Nanny's name. Was Nanny, if I remember, he was missing, Nanny was missing next game in the previous one. So to come back, to take it out on those poor skinks. But then it's not just that, it's not a one-player team. You've got block on 1, 2, 3 other three players with block. Some of the, shadowing on a random skills for another one of the linemen, but then you've got foul appearance, you've got wrestle, you've got strip ball, so it gives the opposition coach something to think about every single block, every single blitz.
He's gone for which I didn't realize. We didn't talk about it in the game against James. Previous seasons, Rich has gone for a Minotaur, and he's gone for the Ogre instead. I feel like I prefer. Now, do the Minotaurs have Unchanneled Fury or Animal Savagery? Unchanneled Fury.
Yeah.
Do I prefer Unchanneled Fury to Bonehead sometimes? I don't know. I personally, I'm not keen on the Ogre unless you have something to throw with it. But that I might be being a bit kind of short-sighted there. Tom, what do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't played with either an Ogre or a Minotaur, but I think the Minotaur also has frenzy as well, doesn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
It does,
It does have frenzy, yeah.
And it's got horns as well. So again, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like you say, which one's more reliable, Bonehead or Unchanneled Fury? And most people say, well, Bonehead's the least negatrait on the big guys, so maybe he's just playing it a bit safe and making a broader strength team.
I guess you protect your own players more, don't you, Scott?
Yeah, isn't the armor on a Minotaur 9? Because obviously the Chaos Ogre is on a 10.
Yes,
so
it would be
a little bit extra safety just in terms of. So maybe Rich was thinking a lot of his team development this year has been about the random skills. So maybe Rich was thinking just to get a bit of stability, just to have that the big guy there with the 10 up save on the armor throw could have given him a bit more of a solidity in that center.
I wonder as well. I don't know whether there's how much of a cost difference there is between the two. My gut would tell me that a ogre is maybe slightly cheaper, but not by so much that I wonder if it would sway your decision. It's interesting to see the two kind of to see the switch. He's gone from Minotaur to ogre. Whether that is kind of like a key change.
So
Johnson.
sorry to jump in. Minotaur's 150. So yeah,
So
it's
it would be
10k
more.
more. And it's got Frenzy, Horns, Mighty Blow, Thick Skull, and Unchanneled Fury. Whereas obviously the Ogre's got Bonehead, Mighty Blow, Thick Skull, Throw Teammate. So, and Scott, you're right. It's got AV9 on the Minotaur, and also it doesn't have any passing. Although I don't think anyone's going to be using a Minotaur for passing.
Is it movement 6 as opposed to movement 5?
No, movement 5, strength
Movement 5 as well.
Yeah, so they've both got movement 5, both got strength 5, got edge 4. Ogre's got passing 5+, and Ogre's got armor 10, whereas a Minotaur has 9.
John's in the chat. Hi, John. And he's saying, having run a Yeti, he'll take Boneheads as the nega trait every day. If the Yeti goes down, you need to waste a blitz to get him back in the game. I had this, one of my games at the weekend, an opponent had a Minotaur, used the blitz in order to get, if you blitz, you have to get a 2-up. If you move, it's a 4-up. So he used the blitz not to punch someone, just to make it easier to move the Minotaur. So I guess you've also, with that ogre, because it's always a 2-up, you've got more move. You've got more scope to move. Rich is looking like he's through. He could still finish third in this group. I think it's unlikely that he will finish third or even finish lower. If he finishes third, 17 is comfortably going to be a wild card spot. Do we think? I think Sam can still put up a fight here. I think Nick has thrown a bit of a interesting spanner into this group with his 3-0 win against Sam, but I think Sam can. He's got the croc score in that team. He's got the strength. He's got the strength to do some damage to the ogres. He can certainly do some damage to Underworld with that team. I want to say that it's not asking too much. I think he can still do it. Do we still think Sam can go through?
Yes, I think he's what's he got out? He's got his chameleon skink. Looks like he's out missing next game. He's got 95k in the treasury, 60k for another lineman, or it's even 70k for another skink. What would you do, Chris, as our lizard expert? Obviously, other experts are available, but tonight Chris is the lizard expert. What would you go for, Chris, in terms of you've got to get your squad up to 11? Where would you go with this one for his next match?
I would see, it's tricky because I love playing a passing game with skinks, which is not how you normally do it, but is fun and gives you an option that you don't have if you don't take the chameleon. You can still pass with a skink, but it's 4-up, and the 3-up on that chameleon with the on the ball is really, really handy, especially if you've got the rerolls to back it up. So I think on the ball just gives you, if you need to score quickly, on the ball is good because it gets you a bit closer to the ball, and you've got the option of a 3-up pass, 3-up catch if you can't quite make those rushes or whatever it is. I think I would always keep a chameleon in my back pocket. I don't think you need two, but I think one is good. So I think I would be leaning towards getting the chameleon, and then getting the skink. Having said that, I'm immediately going to change my mind because I've just spotted that Sam does already have a skink with reduced movement. So you've already got a movement 7 skink in there. So actually, I think if I was Sam, I would get another skink, so I've got another movement 8 on the pitch, and then work towards getting the chameleon and then maybe getting rid of the skink that is movement 7 so that I don't have 2. So I've got more speed. I think that's where I'd go.
So if you're Sam then, and you've now got to come up against Crow Britannia, so you've got to be looking, you're coming up against a very, very agile team. Would you try and match them in terms of a bit of agility, or would you just cage up and, how would you play that then, Chris, in terms of your next match?
What big guy is in that? What big guy is in that Cruel Britannia team? Let's have a look.
Troll.
Underworld Troll.
Yeah.
It's got a troll.
The problem is, if he wants to, he can chuck a goblin or a snotling into the middle of your cage. That's the worry. Armor wise and strength wise, you out strength everyone in that team except that troll. So I would possibly, and this might be a mistake, I would possibly be not. I wouldn't be afraid to put a Saurus in a tackle zone, because I know that I can get 2 or 3 dice each time. Maybe playing it patient and keeping some skinks back just in case, to try and sweep anything up. Because also a skink can 2 dice a snotling. It's not often that you've got skinks in your team and you can actually 2 dice something else. That's a novelty. So you can do it if the snotling's got the ball and is chucked down the pitch. 2 dice, get 2 skinks on it and get 3 dice on a snotling. Love it, amazing. So
looking at opportunities as well for Sam, he's got a few SPP in the bank if he wants to go for some random rolls on his couple of his blockers there, and at least once of his linemen. Now I know, Chris, you like myself, you just go hit that random button, see what the tour play gods will bestow upon you. Tom, what would you do? Would you upscale or just to see what you've got? Because realistically, on his next match against Nick, this could be his cup final.
Absolutely, yeah. He's got nothing to lose. Unfortunately, he's lost the first 3 games. He gets to that point where I suppose it all depends on, is he looking to bring this team into the next league, next season, and do you go, well, okay, well I've got a very slim chance of getting through this time, if I upskill, or I hold my SP and actually build it up and get the kind of skills you want. I suppose you can go either way. For me, I would random them.
Yeah, I would be looking at Scott and John for that 13-point wildcard space, and I would be thinking that there are still 13 points to get from this group, and that if the next game is a loss with no points, 13 points goes away. So I think I would possibly be looking at who shall I stick a random skill on, and I would rather have the skill. This season I wanted to be a bit more picky, but I lost my first game and immediately thought, nope, I need to match people's skills if I've got them, put some randoms on and see what happens. So yeah, I think maybe it's sort of, if you lose the next game and suddenly wildcard is out of reach, and you've got a load of players with SPP, if you're then not going to redraft, it was a waste. So we'll be cheering on Sam. We'll be seeing how he can get on, see if he can get out of that group. It is looking very good for Rich in that one. But we'll move on to the next game, which is our very own Tom. Batfink Bloodletters versus Greystones Gladiators. A rematch with a similar outcome, unfortunately, for your vampires. Let us know how this one got on.
Yeah, so I came into this thinking, let's play tactically. So I brought in Ivan and I can't pronounce your mercenary, but the fouling mercenary to get it. And I knew it was going to be a struggle when I thought, well, let's play safe. Let's do the safe rolls first. And Ivan's got block and he's on the line and he's up against an elf lineman and rolls double skulls straight away. So you know you're going to have a problem straight away. I've got 4 re-rolls. First roll of the dice, double skulls. I'm not getting rid of a re-roll. So that happens. so my first turn was over in seconds. The second turn, I got a thrall killed, dead outright. And Justin, as we all know, is a very seasoned player. He knows how to play these elves very, very well. But equally, elves just seem to have a magic dice that doesn't go below 4 on anything. So he was rolling amazingly as well. So it was, as you can see, it was quite a full-on match. Lots of fouling on my side. Actually, some fouling on both sides. Unfortunately, I got 2 dead. Luckily, there were thralls. He was doing a fantastic job of clearing my vampires out. But again, the reason I was frustrated that they don't show KOs was because at one point, well, for the majority of the match, I was at least 1 player up against him, even though he'd killed some of my players. So it was a very, very close game.
I'm interested by your inducements. So you took the mercenary, which I've had to look up, but sneaky get dirty player +1 mercenary on a legendary lineman. So strength 3, agile 3, so sort of similar to the thralls. Ivan Death Shroud as well as you had a lot of inducement money to take 320. Were you looking for numbers? Is that why you went for kind of 2 players? What was kind of the thinking behind it?
Absolutely. So my previous matches with vampires, I was just trying to even the field out that I can use them. I don't have to roll for bloodlust on these 2 players. They could be my support people. I really liked Ivan, although he didn't really come out to his 4, but it really made Justin kind of think, because Ivan's got quite a lot of skills associated to him. He's got things like disturbing presence. He's got block straight away. His special skill is once per turn you get mighty blow +1. If it's against dwarfs, it's +2. So he's got some nice little things. Oh, he's also got strip ball, which unfortunately I didn't get the chance to put in. Which I thought that'd be fantastic if I could hypnogaze 2 people on the side on the cage and then throw him in there. That's a nasty little thing, but unfortunately, it just didn't happen.
The foul appearance, I imagine, being a good pull, especially not the foul appearance, so the disturbing presence, especially Justin. We know Justin's not afraid to pass. I think was it most completions or up the top near the top of most completions last season, definitely. So we know that he's not afraid to go for a pass. He's 7 completions this year, so he's going for it again. So maybe a good shout there to kind of try and minimize the threat of that somewhat. Um,
Yeah.
Scott, have you had a look at this one?
I did. I was a bit concerned for Tom, if I'm honest, going into this. I mean, Justin had just come back off, 4-0 win over Andy. We know Andy's dice were completely shocking on that occasion. But when you look at how Justin has developed that elf team as well, he's got block on 4 of his players. He's got blodgers on both his blitzers. So he's got block and dodge as well. 1 jumper for that continued movement, 1 for that tackled, and his thrower is sure feet cannoneer, cloudburster, running pass as well. We know it's a very good player. He's got a bounty against it as well. So when I saw that and you saw the amount of casualties, I was surprised as well. Justin was going a bit toe to toe in terms of the physicality. So that was good to see that he can change it. So he's got that bit of strength in the elves, not just something to be punched around the pitch like Skaven. So, kudos there, Tom. I could see it coming through. And even as Justin said in his commentary on Discord, there are a lot of bad dice rolls from the vampires. You mentioned double skulls there, particularly for Ivan. But just before we come on, it seems to be a theme. Tom Hunn's other Tom seems to be the exception of the vampires this season. All of the other vampire players seem to be suffering from a really bad case of dice roll. That's what you live with them, and it's not as if they haven't taken enough re-rolls. Everybody's stacked up with the re-rolls, 3 to 4 re-rolls, plus trying to go pro where they can do as well. So I thought it was a very good, game for Tom. It'll be interesting, Tom, what are you going to do next in terms of your team? Because, you're down to, 10 players?
I'm down 10 players, but
I've
I've got
your money in your bank. You got, 150k. Are you going to stick that on a vampire? Or are you just going to get a couple, or say a vampire and a thrall? What's your plan?
Oh, I don't know, because my next game is against orcs, so it's that high. And I played you, Chris, before the league started with a Vargeist, and they're really nice and they look quite scary on the pitch. But once they go down, you almost have to babysit them just to get them back up. And against orcs, is that enough? So the other thought is, do I go for my second runner? Movement 8, 2 movement 8s on the pitch can give you a bit more flexibility, be a bit more agile, especially if you're passing with the 2 throwers on a passing 2+. But then after that, my final game is vampire on vampire action. So we'll see how the ones roll then. I think we might be having to buy more dice.
You've got your bumper day of games, haven't you, this weekend, with a couple of back-to-backs. I think we're hoping to stream a couple of back-to-back games there, so we'll see what happens. Are you going to be? It's tricky, isn't it? Because when you play 2 back-to-back games, you don't have who your next opponent is, but you don't overly have the time to kind of think too much and play too much. Is it a case of get as much skill as you can in game 1, randomize all that skills, and push for game 2? Are you sort of wanting that push, or will you kind of see what happens in the first one?
Yeah, I'm pretty much that kind of player with this team. I'm pretty convinced I'm not going to take them through to the next season. They're just too. There's too much dice admin for my liking to make them even enjoyable. Even when there was a couple of times that in this match that I had some fun with doing hypnogaze, which is a great little skill. I love that. It just really upsets the playing field, so to speak. But yeah, I think if I get extra kind of rolls, I'll do some random skills after the first game. But as I say, it's going to be a tricky one because it's against orcs. It's against Harrison with his orcs, and he's very good with those orcs. And then it's going to be 2 lots of vampires, 2 vampire games back to back if we manage to get them both in. And that's going to be slightly different as well, because again, Andy's got his vampires, but he's got the classic, the complete box of vampires. And I wonder if that's too many vampires for the percentage of thralls.
I make no comment about Harrison's performance now or to come. But if you're thinking of teams for next season and you want the stress of having to roll a 1, having to not roll a 1 before every single activation, but you don't want the dice admin, may I suggest ogres? A slightly less stressful, less admin, but equally as stressful when they roll a 1 on every activation and you've got nothing left on the pitch. Well, good luck at the weekend. We'll be interested to see how all that goes, and hear about all those games next week. One last game for us this week, which is Dwarves versus Amazons. Now the Proxy Amazon team played. Is being shared a bit just to manage time. So Jane played the Amazons on this occasion. She's done 2 seasons of Amazons before, so she knows what she was doing. And I think if we say that the first comment she puts in the chat is "Oh my god," then we can probably gauge how this game generally went. Elliot's Elliot's rampage continues, Scott.
Yeah, Elliot is having the season everyone dreams of. You're getting another 6 point, game, 3-0 in the bag, lots of injuries. And when you look at his team now, I think he's on 29 points. I saw, and if you look at his skill set, it's the thing just to you look at as another coach with undisguised envy. Bloody lovely, you look at that. Imagine having a Skaven team with all of those strength skills. Wouldn't that be something? So but he's earned it. We talked about this at the beginning of the season. He'd had an incredible run last year, to get to the final. We said, could he repeat it? And the answer is he's sort of given us the 2-finger salute and saying, up yours I can, gentlemen and ladies. And, phenomenal. He's one of those teams. There are a few, but he's definitely one of those. I think a lot of other coaches are hoping not to draw in the knockout event as well.
Yeah, it's it's such a you look at all the skills on there, the amount of mighty blow, guard, multiple block, dotted around, the blocks that have been added, the players that come with block already. He almost is at a point now where sort of there's very little risk in throwing a punch at someone, 1 dice or 2 dice. Tackle spread across the players as well. Loads of players with tackle, which is going to really hinder those Amazons with the dodge, because it's going to really take away that reroll. It's going to take away the protection you have on the block as well. And yeah, it's interesting, Tom, because it does seem like at no point has Elliot gone into this game thinking of playing it safe, protecting anyone for playoffs, anything like that. He's gone in and seen 6 points on the table and thought, yeah, let's go for 6 more points. 29,
Yeah.
probably a record for the ADBBL for number of points to get out of a group. So, yeah, exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's even got a movement 7 runner, with sidestep. That's just taking the mick. The fact
It's quite frankly rude, isn't it? I
it is
mean,
rude. But that's not true. And looking at the tour play, he's ranked regional in United Kingdom as 4th. So that is a stat to be proud of, really, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. The fact also that he's got 360k in the bank as well. It's just he loses someone. Oh well, I'll just get another one and get another 4.
yeah, whether he's trying to keep his team value down, he's got enough to get a death roller and a re-roll. Death rollers, now I think about it, how much is a death roller? 170. So, yeah, comfortably enough to get a death roller and a re-roll if he wanted to. That would skyrocket the inducements that are put against him. Yeah, I mean, the again, there was it's almost like there was no need. He could have strolled through this one, but he's plowed through it. It's another terrifying team. I think we've got a number of teams now that have been built that you look at on paper and you go, nope, no, 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 no. Who do we think then? Who do we think out of all of the coaches all the other coaches that we have, if we had to pick someone that we think is best placed to stop him, who do we think has the best chance to slow this boy down?
Just continuing the theme on a personal thing, I'd love to see Tom and his vampires go against them, just to see can he continue that momentum for the vampires. Tom's really shown that when vampires play well, what can they do? But the question then is, if you look at Elliot, he's armor 9, armor 10. So you've got to be not just getting through. So from a vampire's perspective, you've got to get the activation, you've got to get yourself in the position, for the block, for the blitz. You've then got to at least, you've got to take them out because, but then again, Tommy mentioned it earlier about having hypnotic gaze in there.
Mm.
So yeah, always have we got another team as strong as that? Iceborne Raiders and John possibly, but
I was actually wondering whether Fight Dwarfs with Dwarves, Jamie and his World Edge Berserkers, they've got quite a lot of mighty blow in there. They're looking quite aggressive, and as we know, he's got quite a lot of SPP on some players that he could actually randomize on and get some further skills. So that could be quite an interesting lineup.
I think, yeah, I think my money would be, I think a vampire challenge would be quite interesting. I think someone, um, I think they could possibly, they've got things like the hypnotic gaze that could maybe throw a spanner or two in the works if it all works out. I think that could be good. John obviously beat him last season. I think John could also do it. Um, and I think I would also maybe throw Flumps in there as kind of, because Scott plays that Flumps team in a way that is maybe slightly more sort of chaotic and unconventional. Maybe that could be just a challenge that will throw up so many questions. Fanatics and things like that doing their thing could kind of cause a problem. Um, so yeah, I think that could be interesting. I think those three. Who would have the best chance? I don't know. And I guess there's also a question of will he run out of steam? He's been on such an amazing run. Will he
yeah,
get 2 or 3 games in a row where suddenly the dice don't maybe come for him? I'm not saying that he hasn't had that already. He's got lots of built-in things that protect him somewhat against bad dice, but will can somebody force him to roll enough that maybe the dice turn at some point?
Well, it'd be
just
nice.
just go on, Tom, because I just
Sorry,
want to catch up.
I
I
was
just
about
asked
to
you that.
No, that's fine. It'd be nice actually to see maybe like an exhibition match if they don't actually meet at some point, the vampires versus the numpties. So yeah, it'd be quite an interesting one to see.
Are you going to sponsor that financially then, Tom? Are you committed to that on stream tonight? Thank you for
Are
that.
you the
Just
vampires? Are you the vampires that will challenge him?
Not me. No, the other Tom, definitely the other Tom. He's got better dice than me and better skills. Yeah.
just while Elliot is in the spotlight, then, just to share with you some of the feedback from chats. Jane points out, yeah, Elliot is a fantastic coach. He had 5 players left at the end. Ouch, know that feeling from the Rats this year. Tackle was a killer for the Amazons. Phil is suggesting Russian bodyguards in terms of that. John makes a great point as well. Avoiding Elliot in top is a great motivation to not be in a wild card spot. Very true indeed. Phil, you could steal his dice. I'm sure other options are available.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah, Tom's just said him and Elliot met last season in the playoffs, and it was decided on a roll off. So it was that's how sort of tight that game was. So yeah, maybe it is. Maybe Tom is our savior. No pressure, Tom, but have a word, sort it out. We'll go through the groups then. No change in Johnson. Fink Mobs still have been dropped out of wildcard spots. They'll be looking to win their game against What a Wonderful World to try and get back in there. Bifford is now complete, and JD moves into the wildcard spot with 10 points. So we'll see whether he can cling on to that. Riotous Rams move up to the top of Vermouth in their group, and a good performance last week from Cruel Britannia is making them sit quite nicely in third at the minute with a few games to go. Sam looking at the bottom, but Sam 3 losses in a row. Trust me, we'll get onto my performance at the weekend. 3 losses for your first 3 games does not mean everything's going to go that badly. I believe in you. We've got in the group of death, there are a couple of games to play. Dave and Jane play tomorrow. Dave could pretty much cement his top spot there tomorrow with a win against Jane. Iceborne Raiders, Technos Hotspews play later in the week. Greystone Gladiators sitting top of that group. at the moment. 4 games to be played at the weekend there, so we're looking forward to that one, see how that group shapes on that day. That'll be a big day for them. Tom still sitting good at Nixon, that group is unchanged, and Murdrak unchanged as well. Phil moves ahead of Robert for the moment on 2 points. Robert at the bottom on 1. They're yet to play each other, and that game is going to be very key in that group as well. What we'll do now, just very briefly, we'll just give you a bit of an idea as what happened at the weekend when a small army of players from ADBBL and a few other leagues went over to Wales in order to play a few games in the Welsh National Championships. 6 games over 2 days. Iceborne Raiders were there, Bitey Ducks were there, Dave Rue, he wasn't there with his Shambling Undead team, but he was there with some lizards. Daryl, not there with his orcs, there with Underworld instead, and James there with his rats as well. And it was a we'll do the wild card in a bit because I've realised I've forgotten that. It was a yeah, it was a good couple of days. Day 1 went probably better for some teams, and day 2 went better for others. We can have a look at John's Iceborne Raiders team, which we're all pretty familiar with at this point. John had a very good first day at the tournament with a draw and 2 wins, and in the second day came in with a loss, win and draw. Really great record, 114 people, and John finished around 26th, 27th, I think. The exact number changed after I looked at it last, so but a really solid performance from John, a positive record for that tournament, which is really good for that team. Daryl, who has not had a great season with us, but with his Underworld team actually had a really great run in this tournament. He takes a win and 2 losses in his first day, but then a draw and 2 wins in day 2, including a phenomenal turn 16 throw teammate last gasp equaliser in that 2-2 game, which I know he was so thrilled to pull off. So yeah, a really strong showing for Daryl with that Underworld team. I've got a feeling if we've got Daryl next season, we could be seeing his Underworld rather than his Orcs. James with his Duskreach Danger Rats. They had a great day, a great first. I thought it was a better first day. I'm sorry, James. Loss, win, loss on day 1 of the tournament, but a draw, win, loss on day 2. So maybe slightly better fortunes on the second day there. Again, some close games against some strong opponents. When you win and do well on the first day, your opponents on the second day are always stronger than if you do rubbish on the first day. So yeah, a good showing from James as well. Looking at Dave with his Lizardman team, he had a strong, strongish first day as well. Win, loss, draw on day 1, loss, win on day 2. So a couple of tricky results there, but again, some really strong opponents that some of these guys faced. That 3-0 loss that Dave had against a guy who had come over from Spain to play in the tournament. If you're traveling that far, you know you probably know what you're doing. And the Bitey Ducks as well. I had an absolutely shocker of day 1, a 4-0 loss on my first game and a couple of losses, but that did give me an easier draw on day 2, and I managed to get 2 wins and a draw out of that. So some good performances all around, some really good representation in the league. If anybody who is watching who hasn't been to a tournament, any tournament, not a 2-day one, literally any tournament, then have a chat with one of the people who have, because Tom, I know you've got a couple of tournaments under your belt. 3 back-to-back games are so much fun in that kind of setting. It's really good, isn't it?
It is great fun. It's great fun, and yeah, we've been lucky to be to a number of different tournaments, all within Suffolk. And as we were saying before the actual video, there's so many new tournaments coming in. You know, Suffolk is starting to become such a stronghold for, and in fact, even East Anglia is becoming such a stronghold for Blood Bowl, which is great. And you've just got you've got a diversity of players as well, which is nice. I like the fact that you've got new players, seasoned players, and others who just want to have a bit of fun. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, we've got some good ones coming up as well. Death on the Demon 2, Into Bibble is ongoing at the minute. We've got the East Anglian Derby. We've got the Ipswich Classic. We've got the Subterranean. That's just to name a few. I can, off the top of my head, think of another 4 or 5. There are so many happening in the region. I think we were saying earlier, Suffolk seemed to represent about 10% of everybody who went to over to Wales at the weekend. So yeah, we've got loads coming up. So if you think that a tournament is your thing, have a chat with someone who's been to one, sign up to a local one. It's a really good fun. It's a really good day. Scott, are we getting you in a tournament at some point?
I'm signed up for the Ipswich Classic. Such is my commitment. It's actually on Mrs. B's birthday, but let's not talk about that. I'm still got a slight limp in the left leg, so hopefully that'll heal up by the time we get there.
Fire a team, bring her along.
That's why I'm limping. I did make that suggestion, Tom. So I need to get the solicitors involved before we breach this subject again.
Well, if there's no other reason for us all to sign up for the Ipswich Classic, it's that it's the last time we'll ever see Scott. So that seems like a good
motivation.
Reason. We'll have a quick look at the wild card because I skipped over that. Tetanus Hotspurs and Odin Ravens currently sitting in those wild card spots. Hotspurs have another game to play, so that threshold of 13 could get higher. Odin's Ravens sitting there on 10. Teams below them with games to play, but if they don't go their way, he could cling on to that spot. So JD, keep the faith. I'm rooting for you to cling on to that last wildcard space there. No new confirmed qualifiers, no new confirmed knockouts this week, but we'll keep you posted as the week goes on as to how that goes. And I think that's probably it. That's all our games. That's a super quick run through the tournament at the weekend. And that's our wild card. I haven't missed anything, have I, lads?
I thought you were going to share your trophy. Did you not come back with a big trophy, Chris? Obviously for the Ducks.
I came back with a prize, but not a trophy. Yes, for the good thing about being so terrible on day one is that you get an easy run on day 2 and you can win a prize. So I did get the prize for the best comeback, and that prize for me was a Lizard Man team. So. They will be the Bitey Ducks away kit and maybe even a couple of replacements for some broken ankles that I've got in my team at the minute. So yeah, all good. Thank you both for being here today. Thank you everyone who's been on the chat and has been watching. Really appreciate your support as usual. We'll look to bring some live games this week. We're going to have the bumper day at the weekend with a couple of back-to-back games from Tom's group, so keep an eye from that. And if we don't see you on those, we will see you next week for another roundup, for another week's worth of fixtures in the ADBBL. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.